With the worship planner, you can set up services based upon previous activities or previous liturgies that you've used before and assign folks to roles as they would participate in those worship events on those days. And so to use the worship planner, you'll want to go into the calendar icon, which is the planning section, and then jump into service planning. Under service planning, you'll then go to worship planning. Now there's two levels of configuration for your worship plans and worship services. The first is the ability to view the plans that you've created. Plans are essentially templates that could be used for multiple services throughout the year. Services are instances of those plans for a given weekend. So say, for example, you have a standard weekend service that you use. You'll create a plan for that weekend service, and then from that plan you can create a new service using it for this coming Sunday. The same is true for if you maybe have a communion service and you want to have a standard procedure for that. You would have that as a plan, and then when the communion Sunday, if you do that on the first Sunday of the month, for example, you would use that plan to generate a service for that day. So I'll jump into three plans. There are several plans here that have been created, and if I want to create a new one, I would start out by clicking the new button, and we'll call this the standard worship service. Okay, once we got the standard worship service created, we can then begin adding events to it. And so when you add an event to the worship service, you can provide the name of it, of course. So maybe you want to have a time of preparation. We'll save that. When you add events to the worship service or the worship plan, you'll make sure to choose the type of event that it is. In this case, this is an introduction period, so we'll just call this other. And sometimes if you've used a name before, you can reuse the type for future worship services. So in this case, this is a new activity. We'll call it service prep. All right, and then we'll say this is it's going to take we'll give this about 30 minutes of prep. And we'll assign this particular responsibility to a role. And the role would be a specific team that will handle this particular responsibility. And so I'll choose the worship team assignments. And we won't give it a task for now. We'll save it, and we'll add another one when we do that. All right, so now we've created the first activity in the plan, and it's called preparation. It is service prep. That's the other name for it. That's the default that will be used for future worship services as well. And so we have 30 minutes of prep, and of course you can see the service is starting at 12 o'clock. We don't want to do that. Say the service starts at 8 o'clock. All right, so we're going to start activities at 8 o'clock. In fact, if the service starts at 8 o'clock, we'll go ahead and say we'll start planning at 7:30. All right, and so now we have the first activity, which is doing preparation. It's assigned to the worship team. Now in this case, we assign this to the worship team, but we may want to actually have a team that is associated with this responsibility called the tech team or something like that. And so to do that, we'll go back into the planning and we'll go to teams. And these are all my teams that I have. It looks like there's a team called Setup Crew, and I didn't realize it was there. So we'll go to Setup Crew and make sure that the roles are in here as needed. So here's the Setup Crew. Let's go to Team Roles. There are no roles defined. So let's go ahead and add a role, and we'll call this Media Video. How about that? There's some other options here. When you create a new role, you can set requirements for it, but we won't do that now. Let's add a new role, Media, Audio, and then let's maybe add a facility as a worship facility. How about that? All right, there we go. All right, so there's going to be someone assigned to the media, the audio, the video, and then just a general facility. So that'll be the Setup Crew, and we'll call this Worship Service Setup Crew. All right, so there's our Worship Service Setup Crew, and they have these roles called the audio person, the video person, and then the general worship facility person. So now if I go back to my worship service planning, worship planning. Go to view plans. Go back to my standard worship service. And now before I added the role being the worship team assignments, I'm going to change this to be that new role I created or just edited it just now. We'll change this to worship service setup crew. There we go. And we'll just save that. Okay, close that. And so now we have a first task. It's the preparatory task, making sure the worship center is ready or the worship area is ready. And if we want to add more events, we'll hit add event, and then we can call it welcome. This will be the welcome, and this will be, we'll call this an announcement, and it's going to be maybe 3 minutes. And it's going to be assigned to a contact, and then we'll just type in someone's name who's going to do this, and then we'll save it. All right, so now we have the preparation time, we have the announcement, and I'll just add a couple more. We'll save and add another one, and we'll call this opening song. And this is song. It'll be, I'll call this maybe 4 minutes, and this is going to be for our worship team. So now there's a few ways to do this. As we said before, you can assign something to a contact. You can assign something to a role, which would be a role associated with a particular team that you have in the Teams module. But you can also assign something to a service role. Now what this means is that, say for example, let me close this out and I'll complete adding it in a moment. Say for a particular worship plan, you have a group of roles always associated with this particular plan. In this case, I've assigned the worship service setup crew to this role. And so if I have another task in the worship service that I want to have the worship service team perform, I can choose that service role. This particularly comes into play when you want to have a group of people, and in this case the worship team, handling multiple activities in the service. Of course, the worship team is going to do 4 or 5 songs, for example. So in that case, I'm going to go in here and add the worship team to the service. And so I have the worship team assigned to the service. This is a shared team assignment. Now when I want to assign a particular event in the service to a group that is already attached to the base worship plan, then I can just continue to assign them as I add new events to the service. So let me show that as an example here. So if I go to plan events, and I'm going to go to add event. Every Sunday we might have different songs, so I'll just call this song number 1. And of course this is going to be a type of song, and then I'll choose duration of 3 minutes, and this is going to be assigned to a service role. And because I've already selected that service role, which is worship team assignments, I'll choose that, and then I'll hit save. Save and add another one. So that's the first song, and then we'll do song number 2. And this is a song, and then it's a 4-minute song here. Service role, and then worship team. And then we'll save and add another one. And for the sake of this demonstration, I'm only going to add a few of these. We'll just call it sermon. We'll say this is going to be, we'll do other here, and we'll give it a new name. We'll call it and this is going to be, let's say it's 40 minutes, and this is going to be assigned to a contact. And then in this case, whoever our pastor is, for example, we might do that, and then we'll save and add another one, and then we'll do a benediction, and then we'll call this an announcement. The benediction will be 2 minutes, and we'll assign this to a contact, and we'll also give that to the pastor, and then We'll save. All right. So there is our service. Again, this is a very simple service. It is, of course, you can have a lot more involved things here, but this is how it would be laid out. And again, this is a plan that I can reuse on multiple weeks throughout the year. So now I've created this plan. I'll go back to my dashboard for the worship planning, and I go to View Services. And so now I can go in and create a new service based upon an existing plan. And so I'm going to go. I used the standard worship service, and of course, it's going to be for this Sunday. I'm going to create and continue. All right. So now I have a service that's instantly populated by the plan that I selected, and we'll give it a name. We'll call it Sunday, February 4th, 2024. All right. Now we have our Sunday service, February 4th, 2024. And I can give it a description if I wanted to, but I'm not. And if I want to also include media for the service, say for example, I have songs or worship songs that I want to choose, or other types of maybe some PDFs or something, or PowerPoint documents, I can point this to a repository and have it pull that information. When I need to pull data or documents, I can pull those in. And so say I have a worship, maybe a test binder, and the test binder would have our PDFs of our various worship songs in it. Everything from the original plan is pulled in. The template is pulled in. I have my start time. I have all my events that happen. And then I have my assignments in place. And of course, for this week, I can go and change these assignments. In the case of the worship team, you definitely would want to, you may have different people each week for that. And so even though you have the worship team assignment as a part of the plan, if I go back, close this out, you see my related assignments. Even though I have my worship team as a part of the plan, the individual assignments for that week I can go in and make. And for example, if I want to go to view these assignments, I can go view and choose the individuals that will be in these roles. So if I want to say Margaret Warner will be the vocalist, and on drums I want to have Bridget Wall, and then for electric guitar I'm going to have Christy Mann. How about that? All right, and we'll save those assignments, and then I go back. And so now all those assignments are made. Anywhere that the worship team is assigned to a particular activity, they will have those responsibilities. And for example, if I choose song 1 and I go in here and I have it assigned to a service role, and I choose the worship team global role and hit save, it'll populate those in. I now have this worship team assignment, and the worship team is attached to these folks that I selected for that worship team. So this is generally how you'll do the worship planning setup. Of course, you can, as I said before, if you have data elements, say for example, you go in here and you want to, for the preparation time, say you want to add some media or other things, I would go into the event, I would hit resources, and I can add an event resource, call it a file. I can choose from that repository, which does not have anything in it. Matter of fact, for the sake of this demonstration, I want to show you how you would add files to a repository. So go to Documents, and in this case, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, let's do a new binder, and I'm going to say Sunday, let's call it Worship Service Media. All right. And then I'll add a file, upload a file. Let's find a PDF. Here we go. How about that? We'll save that. And then we can add another piece of media here. Let's imagine we uploaded a song, this Amazing Grace. Key of E. Not sure what key it's in the default, but we'll say that. So now we have a couple of files in our repository that we're going to use for the worship service. So I'll go back to the worship service that we were working on. And earlier I selected another media repository. I'm going to change that to worship service media. Okay. And then now when I go into my preparation Go to Edit. I want to add a resource. I'm going to add a file. And we want to choose that. We can choose interview questions, but just say you had a file in there and you can save it. Now, of course, you can, when you're doing this too, say, for example, you have a file that is on your folder and you don't want to jump over into that repository to go and grab it or go and add it. You can actually upload a file directly here. Say I'm going to go to folder. All right, so here's some songs, and can it be in G? All right, so I've uploaded, this is me uploading that file into the repository. And so now I can actually choose it as a part of this particular part of the service. We changed that out. We chose and can it be in G. That's now the file associated with this particular part of the service. Of course, this is a song, but I'm attaching it to preparation just as a demonstration. Matter of fact, I'm going to delete this from resources there. And when you think about the preparation time, the most logical thing you'll probably do is add a note for the folks that are doing prep. And then in this case, I'm going to say video prep notes. Ensure that all slides are formatted in 16:9. All right. That'll be the instruction for the person that is handling that part of the service. So there's some video prep notes. And then we can add another resource as a note. It will say audio prep. Check all batteries in wireless mics. All right, there we go. So we have those two notes available for the folks that are going to be doing that role. And then as we demonstrated before, we'll go to this song and we'll say resources. We'll add a resource. We'll call it a file. And again, we've chosen our repository. We have and can it be in G. We'll save that. And so now the song for this particular part of the service will be and can it be. And then we'll go with that. We won't add any more resources there. All right, so we have and can it be in G. We have our audio prep notes there. And no service plan would be complete if you weren't able to print it out as a lead sheet. And so to do that, there's a button at the bottom. You'll choose print service. And upon printing, you'll get a nice formatted PDF that shows you the order of worship. And so here we go. We have the preparation here, the video prep notes, the audio notes. We have the welcome, who's assigned to it. We have the worship team assignments. We know who's on song 1. Matter of fact, it's interesting. I didn't change this, so I didn't show you how you can change this. If I edit this, we want to call it. The template had song 1, but of course, for the worship service, we want to put the actual song in there. So we'll say, and can it be in? This is in the key of G. We'll say that. And then we'll change this song for the sake of our demonstration. We'll edit this one. And let's see what songs we have in our repository. I'll choose file. And we add a song here that's not in our repository. I will trust my Savior Jesus. It's a great song. All right. And we'll save it here. I think that was in C. All right, so now we have I Will Trust My Savior Jesus in C as a second song. We have our first song being and can it be in G. And as I said before, let's go ahead and print this out. If there's ever a need for your worship plan, the printing to look a little different, we can definitely edit that for you. These are customizable. And so this is the basic configuration. We've customized these for different purposes. If you want certain things not on there or certain things added to the actual printout, we can update that for you. Just reach out to us. So you'll have the actual flow of service, and if it spans multiple pages, of course, it'll go to multiple pages. And then as the last page of your service, you'll have the assignments. And so if you have team assignments for that Sunday as a part of the worship service, those will appear on the last page. as responsibilities. And so this will give you the ability to have that and have someone be able to know who's attached to a role on that Sunday. All right, so that is the worship planner. Please reach out to us if you need help in understanding how to use it further. But we hope that helps you, and we thank you for using church software.